Welcome so much to joining us here today for Mayshad Choice Women in the Money. I am Jan Rostradams. I'm the Vice President of Development for U.S. Choice, Mayshad Choice, and I'm thrilled and honored to be here hosting you today with our founder and CEO, Neza Aloui.
Hello, everyone. My name is Neza. I'm the founder and CEO of Mayshad Choice, our New York-based ecosystem for women executives and founders. At Mayshad Choice, we focus on creating relevant content for women, a lot of networking opportunities through events and now through virtual rendezvous. We also partner with other initiatives that are important to women, like Ellevest, which is an investment fund for women founders, and Medici, which is a financial platform that brings good content and good learning financial content for women.
Thank you so much, Neza. Welcome to our live stream today is Emily Green, who is Ellevest's first private wealth financial advisor. Ellevest is committed to closing the gender investing gap through intentional impact investing. Thank you. Welcome, Emily. And Aditya Khurjekar, the CEO and founder of Medici, the #1 destination for fintech insights and media. Previously, Aditya founded Money 2020 and was the founder of the mobile payments joint venture that now powers Apple Pay. Welcome, Aditya. Emily, our first question today goes to you. So since the last time that we talked, so much has happened just with the pandemic and its impact in the global financial markets. And we know that that ripples down to how we think about everyday interacting with women and money. What's happening at Ellevest for you in the last month, and how has Ellevest, from your perspective, responded to the pandemic, ensuring that you're advising your clients appropriately?
Yeah, so it's definitely been interesting. These are new and different times, and not only because for us, we see the financial markets going down, but people are losing their jobs. Income is less now at this point for a lot of people, and so on and so forth. It's actually very interesting for us. We've actually and found this over time, not only through now, but in the past, that women tend to be actually more rational in these times. So we see that women actually panic less. We definitely see that there's women who, cannot contribute to their investments or things like that because of they have to take a pause because of income streams and such. But women actually tend to be more steady investors, and they think in long term. So, we've really been focusing a lot on content around these types of what's going on right now. Today, we came out with kind of a go through of steps to take if you've just lost your job and what to be thinking about. So we've really kind of taken, we had content for, equal pay day and these types of things, but we really kind of had to shift into focusing on, what the reality is that we're living in now, which is very different than it was a month ago. So helping women to focus all of their kind of financial, what they can put in their mind financially. There's a lot of other things that we have to deal with right now, but to making sure that they're going to come out of this okay.
Emily, do you find that also your investors who are supporting female entrepreneurs through the Ellevest platform have responded differently during this time too? And what is your sense in your team's conversations with funders?
Yeah, I think that, you definitely see people, I think it's tough because we've gone through a lot of years where frankly investors had a lot of cash to invest into founders in general. And you see times like this, and it finally it does tighten up a bit. When you're looking at things, people want to take less risk. We had all these great years where people are willing to take risk and willing to think about these things. But, sorry, good cough. I'm trying not to cough, but it's not working. It's I don't want to cough on these people.
Okay, you can
But, I think it is, we are going to go through a period of time where I think it is going to be harder for people to raise funds, frankly. People are just going to be more, they're going to be tighter on that. And I think also the people that unfortunately get hurt by this most are women, because you look for safe things in times like this. So you look for your buddy, who you went to college with, who's starting a company. It's not the time when you're looking for this woman who you just met to take that risk on. So we saw this in the financial crisis in 2008, actually, that diversity went backwards. And unfortunately, I think we will see it again. So it's a more important topic than ever right now.
So this is why, thank you, Emily. This is why at Mayshad Choice and across our individual and collective initiatives, we definitely need to keep being present for women in those times and make sure that this diversity step back that happened in 2008 doesn't happen as strongly, with more initiatives that are out there supporting women. Aditya, I would like to start our conversation today, which is the first talk that we had, you and I, 3 weeks ago when we started this self-quarantine of calling each other as two entrepreneurs. And tell us, as an entrepreneur, how can we get over this time? How can we use this time smartly and not get into a panic?
Thanks, Neza, and thanks, Jan. And, thanks for the question. I feel like sometimes, especially when things are hard, many of us, right, we start panicking. That is a natural human response. But I do feel like this is when we should remember what our grandmothers taught us, okay, which is just common sense. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, if there's one advice I would give myself is to just, keep your head down and do what makes sense, right? And I think basic things such as, looking at your cost structure, looking at things that you can defer, things that you don't need to spend on, picking up the phone and calling your vendors, your partners, your customers who are your well-wishers, right? If you have built a business, if you are, doing something of value to others around you, they are going to be there to support you. Pick up the phone and call, make a request, ask for help, offer help. Hey, I really need you to make that payment sooner. Can you actually take care of the invoice I sent you last week? I really need to make that payment to my staff. Use the goodwill that you have built. I would say that a lot of times, right, good entrepreneurs are just ones who use common sense and old-fashioned things of, leaning on your network, leaning on your well-wishers, leaning on people who work with you right throughout the year. This is the time when you help them and they help you.
Totally. Thank you so much for those insights, because definitely looking back at the cost control, partnering with the vendors, and as you reminded us, Aditya, it's to their benefits to support you. They want you as a client, and they want you to survive across throughout this crisis. And what about business reinvention? What about the businesses who are hurt because they are not enough in a technology level? Do you think that this is a good time as well for businesses to look on how to develop the technology angle?
Absolutely, and I think that's actually a very timely and a valid question. So Jan introduced us as the largest fintech community in the world, and even the word fintech, for people who don't know, that is a relatively new industry. I mean, we are barely a decade old as an industry, fintech. And if you look at the genesis of how fintech, as we know it today, was born, fintech was born in the 2008 financial crisis, right? And so that was, the last major crisis that we remember, okay, where the stock market took a plunge, just like it has taken today, where the banks did not have any money to invest in innovation, where, as the big companies were not able to deal with, taking care of customers and their expectations, that's where technology innovators jumped in. That's where you started seeing the wave of platform lending and robo-advisors and personal financial management tools. Technology came into financial services in a big way in one of the worst periods of the financial industry. This is no different. So I'm very hopeful that many of us, and hopefully some of us, even who are listening to this, look at this as an opportunity to really invest energy and time and creativity into building what could become, the next wave of innovation over the next 10 years. This is the time.
Thank you, Aditya. Emily, we know so much about what our world now is in the digital sense, and most of us have probably had more Zoom calls in the last week than what we've had in the last few years altogether. So I know that Ellevest, which is an incredible technologically fintech forward platform, is probably even now being even more responsive to what's happening now, knowing that what's happening right now, we're in the middle of a seismic shift in the sense of how people work, how they consume, how they invest, that will last far beyond the moment in time we all go back to work in the physical sense, right? And I'm wondering, for you and your team at Ellevest, have you thought about how, to Aditya's point about what's happening right now, how will that further even shape the technologically advanced opportunities that Ellevest brings to its investors and to its clients?
Yeah, I think we definitely, for us, we do kind of thrive in times like this because we were a step ahead of the large financial institutions that we are already so much communicating to our clients via technology. Even our very large clients, family offices, whereas when I worked at large banks, everyone was kind of in New York or in San Francisco. I was on the phone with a family office in Austin, Texas last night and doing things. And that's actually how we worked even before this. So I think that's the beauty of technology and how we've already kind of built that side of it. When we look at it, we already engage a lot of our community through social platforms. Like Sally Krawcheck, our CEO, has done a lot of Instagram lives. We actually do them for our community every day at 3:00 on all different subjects. Which is something we weren't Sally did a lot online before, but we've really been doing like on different things, not just finances, but also like working from home and all these types of subjects. But we're really looking at this in terms of different ways that we can actually even engage people online via learning, because a lot of the first thing that when you ask a woman why she doesn't invest, she'll tell you because she wants more knowledge about investing, which when you actually like give that to people, it's kind of a question of actually, do they actually want it, because it takes a lot of time. But, we've been working on easier ways to provide learning opportunities for our clients online during this time, which we actually will be launching very soon, and actually thinking about new ways to even just thinking about online banking and such. So taking our business, which at the core was investing, and also just expanding what we're looking at is helping women through their entire money life, not just the one sphere that we were focusing on this. And frankly, we can do this exactly because of technology. 20 years ago, it would have been really hard to launch all these different types of products. But the advancement of technology has really allowed us to do this in a quicker, easier, and to get it out to our audience very quickly.
And this is a question actually to both of you. Do you feel like we're at a moment in time now where social impact investing, SRI investing, is going to become even much more in demand? And are the robo platforms through fintech technology, will they be more responsive in opening up even further opportunities for conversation and investing in the the SRI space?
Yeah, I can go first. So we do have a robo platform at Ellevest, a digital advisor. And we do focus on as much we can do in the impact space on that side. When we focus on impact investing, we call it gender lens investing, but that doesn't just mean investing in companies that have women. That is all things that disproportionately affect women, which is basically everything: climate change, gun violence, human rights, exploitative products, all these different types of things, and taking that into account. So we actually started doing this back in the winter of 2018 because of a lot of demand from our clients. And so we built that on the robo advisor side. We have a ultra high net worth side of our business as well, that the majority of our clients are coming to us through this. I think that I think there'll be a split here, frankly. There's going to be the traditional advisors who, they didn't want to learn anything new from the beginning anyways. And so this is kind of another excuse to be like, you know what, why would we try anything new? Let's think about, let's just stick to what we know, and not do, impact intentional type of investing. I think personally, it's more important than ever to think about this, frankly, though, because, impact investing also involves like good governance of companies and such, which matters more now than ever. So even if you take off the impact lens, I meet people who say, I don't believe in climate change. And you know what, you actually do care about that in your portfolio then, because, I always ask someone thinking about, okay, do you like to hunt? And okay, then you care about the conservation of animals. And so you do care about these things and how you're investing and such. So there is connectivity between all these issues always. And I think with the global health crisis we're going through right now, it's actually going to be more important than ever. So I think the people who are already leaning that way are going to be pushed that way. And the people who were hesitant to begin with are going to push even further against it. So I think we're just going to see a greater divide within it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do agree with Emily here. I would just add maybe just a broader point that, in addition to impact, in addition to other things that Emily said, I hope that this is kind of a wake-up call for everybody to look at responsible capitalism, right? And I think that is where we feel sometimes that hey, investments are being made in so many different types of things, but to what end, right? And I think in times like these, we're reminded that are we investing enough in things that really matter, right? And I think that's where, and again, I'm not going to name some of what I might think as superficial innovations, right? But there's plenty of those out there. I mean, VC money goes into stupid things all the time, and that is not a justification for doing it. Just that you have a perceived high ROI. Well, if it's not solving a problem, ROI on what? Right. So I feel, this is a time for many of us in the ecosystem, investors especially, to be more responsible capitalists. And I hope that happens. I always tell people that you're always making an impact, actually. It's just, are you making a positive or negative impact? So impact investing is always a thing. It's just what type of impact is it?
Thank you both for this reminder of impact investing and investing with a positive impact. My question goes to both of you on what is going to happen to investing in healthcare, in biotech, as we are, in the heart of this.
I mean, I can take it first. I'm not an expert in those areas, but we do see a very solid intersection between fintech and health tech, because payments, money movement is something that cuts across both the industries. And look, I mean, I'm already hearing a lot of rumblings about how, especially in the US, the health services infrastructure is just not set up to serve people who need help in a timely, efficient fashion. right? And I think, some of those rumblings might actually do two things, right? Just like in the financial services world in 2008, we saw the birth of fintech. Okay, we might actually see, a resurgence of health tech, or call it health tech 2.0 in this crisis. And I hope that happens. I'm sure there are plenty of innovators out there who are going to take advantage of this opportunity to really jumpstart health tech 2.0. And I would say one more thing is that, look, I feel like the classic tension between folks on the ground and folks making decisions in the ivory towers, that is not going to go away. Okay, as long as we have capitalism, that will be there. But we can probably learn from this and see how decisions that impact masses, decisions that impact the millions and the billions, can actually be made with better data. The good news here is that people are looking at a lot of data today. Even common man, right? People are getting used to looking at, data feeds from all over the world as they're tracking things that they care about. And I think this focus on data, focus on efficiency, focus on solving real problems on the ground, I think that has to have a positive impact for the long run.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think, it's been an issue, obviously, even as we look at our elections and things already. And I think that, this is my personal opinion, but I'm not an expert in the healthcare space either, but I think this will lead to a time period of innovation and perhaps rethinking how the system works here, as we have to take a reflection back on something that is clearly not working, especially as I sit here in New York City and, watch tents being put up in Central Park and such. So and I'm sure there's many entrepreneurs out there already starting to think about how they can, invent and change the way that things are done right now.
Do you see new investment trends coming up or new investment opportunities coming up? Because we know that consumer investors, all of us are not going to go back to just doing things the way we did it before this global crisis that we're facing. On the investment level and financial level, do you forecast new industries like, for instance, health tech, biotech, that are going to become a new opportunity for your investors?
Yeah, I think that anytime there's dislocations like there are today, new opportunities are going to come from it. What that looks like, time will typically tell us. But anytime that there's something that is showing the way that we do things has not worked, there's amazingly smart people out there who will work to think about that. And there is still, even though the stock market has gone down a lot and people have lost a lot of money, there is still a lot of cash out there, I think, ready to be deployed into these types of smart ideas that we will start to see come out, I think probably pretty quickly over the next, 12 months.
It's interesting at Mayshad Choice, where we're, very passionate about connecting women to each other and to companies and causes and institutions that support equity for women and ensuring that women stay really very fresh and relevant and current and innovative in how they lead, how they inspire, and how they give back. And I'm wondering if we take the conversation we've had so far and continue to look through it through the gendered lens, knowing what we know about just how women stereotypically behave, in the sense of we think that we're often more resilient and perhaps pay a greater level of attention to our intuition and care tremendously about our communities and about the planet, and how, particularly right now, what we're going through on a day-to-day basis, particularly for those of us that do live in New York, but then just globally, how do we think that the role of gender will impact the transformation that we see come from the pandemic? And Aditya, I'll direct this question first to you, and then we'll get Emily's thoughts.
I mean, I think that's a very potent question. I mean, I'm not sure if I can answer that firsthand. I can only answer that as an observer as to how I feel women look at this. And I think the first thing I would say is that, anything that is kind of pitched to women as, as a service or a product or choice with just the women label, so to speak. I think anybody and everybody should take that with a pinch of salt, right? Because what you don't want to do is to use that and just to pay lip service to the cause, right? I mean, how exactly is a man or a woman going to make a decision about investment differently, right? Look, and I think data is data. Okay, options are options. Choices are choices, right? And I think the point I'm trying to make is that even in the last 10, 15 years, we have seen a lot of attempts, especially in the PFM space, where companies, applications, businesses were funded, and they were just a layer on top of what was still your legacy bank account. And if that layer is not adding true value to help you make smart choices as a woman, then I don't care what you call the company or what you call the app, right? You could have women all over in the name of the app, but if it is not meaningfully doing something different, it's useless. And we have seen a lot of roadkill along the way. I mean, how many PFM apps have died that were built in the name of women or young children or families or couples? A lot of them. Why is that? Because they did not go deep enough into really understanding what you just said, Jan, right? If you really have to leverage the inherent intrinsic resilience of women, the intrinsic ability to take a more iterative, engaging approach to solving problems and making decisions, as opposed to men, I think, who are just by design more transactional, right? And I think therein lies kind of the insight that I hope that the new innovations coming out of this crisis, they focus on how do you allow women to build on their inherent strengths, as opposed to just giving a pretty layer of an experience on top of something that is basically the same.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with that. I think for, I even just look at us at Ellevest, and that was really actually why we started. It was the fact that these large financial institutions would just like make something pink and slap on like a woman on the cover and just say like, it's for women now, when it's like the exact same product. I think, the financial industry has for so long tried to force women to fit into their mold instead of trying to mold to women, which is crazy, and 50% of the population. But when we think about it, it's hard, because I think that as we were just speaking about this, if people aren't doing it for the right reasons, or actually putting the research to it and taking the time to think about it, it's hard to be successful in helping women think about their money. And I think, one of the things that we're trying to focus on is that it's more important than ever that women take control of some of their money. And that's why there are 401ks and IRAs. And, we used to help women, like, even if you're married and your husband takes care of all the finances, like at least make sure that like you're focusing on that account that literally has the word individual in it, an individual retirement account, or your 401k is literally only for you. So at least start thinking about that, because 80% of women at some point in their life will have to manage their money on their own for a multitude of different reasons. But I hope that we see more innovation in this space as we come out of this. I don't have full faith that will actually happen. I think for a host of reasons, there aren't women who, our CEO, Sally, is one of the only women who's been high up at these organizations, who can leave and kind of start something to do this. I think there's just the diversity problem in finance in general that kind of just continues to think about this. I mean, we see like even in our brand, there was some like we see like a lot of like copycats of things, and they come and they die very quickly. To be frank, because they're not approaching women in the way that they want to, and so hopefully this will change things. But you know, again, in the financial crisis, Wall Street, I was the worst industry actually that went backwards on diversity. So, you know, you look to after this, what will happen? I don't know if I have full faith that they will actually change after this.
You know, I think, you know, if I could just add a point here, and I think, you know, I know it's a cliche, but knowledge is power, right? And I think, you know, women, listening to content like this or reading content that is published on Mayshad Choice or Medici and empowering themselves with information, data, research, tools, you know, before anybody makes a decision, right? If you are able to have enough of the background and the context to be able to make that decision in a better way, I think that's the power of content and that's the power of knowledge in general. And I think in these times, especially when there is so much information around us, right? How can we streamline that, channelize that towards what women need and can use to make good decisions? That is the power of content. I just want to double click on the power of content here, and I know that's the work that you do in your organization. So I just wanted to kind of put a little plug for you as well there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that we're at such a really interesting moment in time and on so many different moments of inflection. And where we also want to open up this conversation to our audience as well. So please feel free, everyone who's out there with us today, to type in and send us your questions. Our first question actually is a very good segue to the points that you're both raising, in that, as we know, the financial services industry is very masculine, male dominated. And there are a lot of hesitations and questions in the sense of, will that change when we're on the other side of this? But yet wondering if that the entrepreneurial space is a glimmer of hope for taking what we're learning right now, definitely in a space where things are pivoting and shifting and you know, flipping themselves on their heads so quickly, just from a day-to-day, week-to-week perspective. And particularly as we know that, you know, now I think we're up to almost, if not a little bit over 10 million unemployment claims filed in the US in the last 2 weeks alone. And we know that that number is going to go up too. So does that create more opportunities for people to, as they're reinventing themselves now by necessity, to re-envision what innovation looks like? And knowing that innovation often comes in moments like this through entrepreneurship, wondering to the question, how can women investors be a part of reshaping the definition of what successful investments look like, considering that in the past, funders were more often interested than not in growth and scale. And for many female entrepreneurs, growth and scale wasn't necessarily a part of their overall strategic plan, which tends to be a very male masculine sort of mindset. So this question to both of you, how do we think that this moment in time could provide that opportunity for the combination and the partnership and the collaboration between funders and investors to think about what does a successful venture look like differently?
I mean, you know, it's hard because we've had this data for years that diverse teams perform better. And so a diverse team of founders, we've known that they perform better even before this. And I think that will continue to be the case and such. And diversity is such an interesting thing because Wall Street is such a data-driven industry. And for some reason, there's so much information on how diverse teams, whether that's a private venture funded company, whether that's a Fortune 500, you know, large corporation, and there's so much data that they actually perform better, yet like not a mutual fund manager is not looking at that type of information. Venture investors don't really look at that information. There's a few places that do, but the big guys really don't. in thinking about that. And so, I hope that people will start to think more and more about that. I think it's going to be more and more important to have diversity, not only in terms of just having a woman, but diversity of all types of backgrounds, and diversity of thought. And, I even think, for me, even when I came to Ellevest, it was such a change for me that like our CEO she ran many of the major wealth management firms, and her co-founder founded a fintech company, and he could not be a more different person. And their conversations are such, it's so funny because they come from such different backgrounds, but it's so important to have that like different thought process throughout this. And so I hope that continues, like that we continue to look at that, but that it's just been, for some reason, it's data that people haven't listened to up till now.
Look, I have to completely disagree with you because we need some diversity of thought here. So, no, look, I mean, I don't think I could agree more, Emily. I think, I think the diversity.
I think we may have a slight technological challenge.
Let's go to the next question.
Let's go to the next question, and when we okay, great, and we'll hope that he'll join us again soon. Emily, another question from our audience. This is a good question. How can blockchain play an important role in the healthcare industry or other industries as we continue to go through this evolution?
I wouldn't call myself a blockchain expert, to be honest. I do know people who are, but obviously it is going to change the way that we are looking at things in general. Blockchain means a lot more than Bitcoin, than kind of was the original, look at that. But I think that it's a very important thing that we're going to continue to see a lot of innovation come through. And I think it's only become bigger, but I wouldn't call myself a blockchain expert. So.
Aditya, we moved on to another question while we lost you temporarily. The question, and we'll come back to your question, the response to your answer before. But the question now is how blockchain can play an important role in healthcare industries or in other industries as we go through this mass transformation.
I don't think we should have overly high expectations from blockchain just because it has a lot of potential, right? So the potential is there, absolutely, there is no question. But I would say we are still in relatively early days of blockchain, okay, and there is no reason for us to be afraid of it or anything. And I think using the tools that blockchain and DLT technology allows us, that's great. But let's not try to forcefully fit every innovation into the blockchain bottle. That's not going to do it. Okay, let us keep blockchain as a technology that is available to us. And again, back to focus on the problem to solve. There is enough technology out there. We don't have to use the most shiniest one just because it starts with a B. Okay, so that's not how I see it.
Aditya, before we lost you, I'd love to go back to the conversation we were having around the potential shift that as entrepreneurs and funders united could bring to the conversation of how we think about funding successful ventures. And can we shift that mindset in the sense of traditionally it being primarily about growth and scale for the sake of in other ways that women may be thinking about growth and scale differently?
And I think that's a very fundamental question too, right? Is growth and scale the only metric for a successful venture, right? One should really think about, are there other parameters that make a venture successful, right? If you are going to measure success by some impact metrics, then growth and scale may not be the primary ones, right? And I think as you look at the diversity that is coming into this space in terms of how investors are going to make decisions and how entrepreneurs are going to spend their energy to build new things. If you're going to solve real problems by taking into account real use cases and really take a very high touch approach to identifying what is it that we are solving, right? Stay away from buzzwords, and then you get to a more comprehensive set of metrics that, now coming back to your question, are only going to be understood by a diverse team. Okay, you can't expect a man to understand what a woman really thinks about. Okay, you can't expect a rich person to really understand what a poor person goes through in her life, right? And so if you are not able to really include diverse inputs into your investment decision process, then you're making a bad investment. And so the only way to solve it, back to what Emily said, is to have truly diverse teams, because that is how you force comprehensive thinking into your decision, not just what you learned in your MBA. And look, I have an MBA, nothing against it, but real life experiences is what makes a good business.
I think it's a really interesting point, because we think about, often diversity through a gender lens or diversity through a race or ethnicity lens, but diversity is really much more complicated in the sense of how we think about individual identity and to your point around, the kind of the nuances of that lived experience being really important as we continue to build teams and really identify what products, particularly from here going forward, are really going to be demand in the market. Because again, as we all know, and we experienced just in the last few weeks, the way that we consume, the way that we shop, the way that we invest, and the way that we think about savings have shifted dramatically in the last couple of weeks. It's interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend in India who owns a marketing company and works with companies around the world, helping them think through how to reposition what they're doing right now in this moment in time. And he was talking about the tremendous opportunities in health tech right now, because he foresees that the mental health industry will become far more accepted into mainstream conversation and mainstream thought, and the opportunities for delivering even more robust mental health care services to people around the world who need it now more than ever. And our next question piggybacks on that, and it is, what challenges do you see for capital raising for healthcare and fintech startups in this new environment? What challenges do you feel like entrepreneurs will face during this time from here on out?
I think from a fintech perspective, let me just kind of take a couple of minutes on that. I think the challenge is going to be really, getting the attention of people right now. Okay, and I think that's true in every facet of the business world today, not just trying to raise money, because even investors, I feel, are really concerned about the health of their existing portfolios. Right. And so as people look at how to kind of deal with the reality of, valuations being uncertain, about, cash flow issues that are going to hit their portfolio companies, about, contracts not being honored, unfortunately, right? In some cases, I don't think there is enough mind space for new investment, which is obviously a massive challenge for innovation. But having said that, okay, I know that there is still more money looking for good projects than the other way around. And I hope, Emily, you agree with that. I don't think as a global community, there is shortage of money. There is a shortage of channelizing that money efficiently into things that will really make a difference. And the more we can do collectively to open up those channels between people who have the money and people who have an idea, that is what we need to do right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you'd be amazed the amount of times I talk to people who have so much money and they say they don't know how to make an impact with it, frankly. So just the tools just don't feel like they're out there for them. They live in communities that it doesn't feel like if you live in the Bay Area, you talk to people about stuff like this all the time. But if you live in other places, I talk to people all the time. They just don't even know how to kind of think about it or approach it. And there's no other people around them to have these conversations with. So I try to help facilitate a lot of that. But I think there's money out there. It's just, kind of getting the word out and facilitating it in the right way, because people want to be making a difference. And I think that people are more and more focused on how to do that. It's just helping guide them, frankly.
It's interesting that I think all of us are kind of in a position now where I'm sure we can all relate after having a lot of Zoom calls. We're realizing that people are in different places right now, right? In the sense of it might be their first week of remote work, it might be their third week of remote work. And so everyone's kind of in a different level of acceptance and embracing this and seizing it as an opportunity. Let's talk a little bit as we close out the session today around just individual self-care and how important that is from a financial perspective, and tips that either of you may have for how we could practice self-care for ourselves as individuals and for our families and for our communities as we move forward through the next month or so of this new world under which we all work.
Yeah, on my side, I think obviously, because a lot of what I do is talk to people about money all day, and I think that the tendency of people in times like this is to freeze up and not think about money and just say like, when this is all over, I'll focus on it. But in reality, then they'll say the market's going up now, so I'm not going to focus on it, or all these types of things. There's kind of always an excuse that we can, kind of rationalize with ourselves. But I think that in terms of like what you can do in yourself, it's kind of looking at what your finances and your investments and things look like today. And I promise you, if you give yourself those 5-10 minutes, instead of, reading the book or watching a Netflix show or doing whatever, you're really going to thank yourself in 5 months and 10 years and 20 years for doing it, because there's a lot of opportunities to be had today. It's a very important time to make sure that you have not only the right venture plan in place, but, the basic financial plan and all these different types of things. And while we have this opportunity to reflect, I would encourage everyone to kind of take that little bit of time and think about that. Because I think, I saw something about this that we all see. There's so much focus on, you got all those Instagram live videos that are all about fitness during this time and such, but like, where's the financial side, which is going to be so important when we come out of this? So making sure that people are, we all are putting time to our health and wellness, but let's put time to our financial wellness at this time as well.
It's a very good point. Aditya, do you have additional tips for us in closing?
Yeah, I would say again, it kind of goes back to, I think there's the common sense piece here, but really as a founder and as somebody who looks at, a team of 40 people as a family, we have to take an extra effort to amplify the communication within the team. I think that goes a long way. Social distancing is probably a misnomer. It should be physical distancing. I think socially we should actually come closer, even though physically we might not be able to. And I think it's very important. For example, I feel like just a daily sync up with the whole team, no agenda, but just a half hour of everybody getting on Zoom and just talking about nothing. I think something as simple like that goes a long way. You touched on mental health, and I think that is probably one of the most, underreported diseases out there. And that is especially true in the startup community. Founders, entrepreneurs, it affects them much more than they are going to be willing to admit. There is just a need for people to communicate more, and it is a very subconscious thing, right? But just at a very personal level, I'm fortunate to have a few WhatsApp groups with my alums from high school and my alums from the city that I don't live in anymore, and from alums from my college. And I would never have the time to engage with my friends there. And now not only do I find myself having at a bit more time, but it subconsciously gives me an emotional support structure just by hanging out on those WhatsApp groups and, basically, just knowing that there are people who are in the same boat as you. Even that goes a long way.
It's interesting your reclassification of self-distancing, social distancing into physical distancing. I absolutely agree. And, I know that for the team at Mayshad, we're absolutely committed to ensuring that the content that we bring forward, particularly right now, as we all remote work, is very meaningful, impactful, and touches upon both the professional and personal opportunities that we feel that we can help women to connect with each other, and to leading experts like both of you. So thank you so much, both of you, for being with us here today to continue the conversation. We'd love to have you back again. We're doing, as all of you know who are listening, we're doing these series every week. We have Women in Money, we have Diversity and Inclusion, we have a Mayshad Women in the City series that we love, which is cocktails together, to do exactly, Aditya, what you just said, to come together and to talk about whatever we want to talk about, no matter what we're experiencing or feeling for that week, together on Monday evenings. And then we open the week with Dr. Risa Reiger, who's a clinical psychologist who helps us make sense of the world under which we're living. And I also want to give a shout out and a sincere, heartfelt thank you to Neza Ailey, who is our leader-in-chief of all things related to Mayshad Choice. And Neza, thank you so much for your inspiration and your courage to keep all of us together and happy under one big global roof together.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Aditya, Emily. Thank you to all of you who are joining us now. You will also be able to see this content and other content on our Mayshad Choice TV channel. And yes, we are focusing on keeping the interactivity going on because it's very important. And we should use this time smartly to look back at our finances, to look back at our networking also, and connect purposefully with people that we lost touch with, and new resources that can support us in this new reality of life. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.